Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and it's time for a review of the debut album by Silk Sonic, which is the teaming up of Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak. This is a superstar lineup between the two of them alone. You have somebody that kind of pulled themselves up by their bootstraps on the underground, that being Anderson, and then you have Bruno Mars, just name up in lights, a huge, larger-than-life mainstream artist, but one that I learned the longer I listened to their music that they had this affinity for the old school and older ways of doing things that made their music pop that much more. Welcome to An Evening with Silk Sonic. This is their first full-length offering, although it is only 9 songs, much like 24 Karat Magic from Bruno back in 2016. It's about 31 minutes. I wish there was more after listening through this, and that's what they do. That's Bruno Mars' calling card now. According to the duo themselves, this album wouldn't have become a reality if not for the COVID-19 pandemic. They wanted to make celebratory music that kind of celebrated life in its own way and took you back to the retro way of doing things. They put out Leave the Door Open as the lead single, and while I think it's a technical feat, it sounds fantastic. The production is so good. It's just a gorgeous song to put on, listen to with headphones. I don't think that they necessarily really drew me in to the point where I was foaming at the mouth saying, yes, give us more of this style, but the more they put out, the more I slowly got won over. If you've spent any amount of time listening to Motown, soul, funk, and R&B, then you know exactly where this record's heart lies, and I think some people are probably wondering, how are you not blown away at first sight with Leave the Door Open? It's because it's very familiar, and I guess at that point too, I didn't know a ton about what they were trying to accomplish as a duo, and the more I heard, the more I saw that they were intentionally trying to be over the top while still having it done the right way. What I mean by doing it the right way is that they went out of their way to grab up session musicians that played on records in the 70s, they knew what they were doing with analog equipment, and they got all of these sounds achieved with this really incredibly lush production because they went the extra mile to get the equipment that actually doesn't try to emulate the sound, it can actually do it firsthand. Bruno Mars teamed up with D-Mile to produce the entirety of the record, and for that reason, it feels very cohesive, like everybody was on the same page. You're not flipping around trying to find a different producer for this chapter or a different mixer for this one. They had kind of the same house the entire time, and keeping it in that bubble elevates the overall experience. An Evening with Silk Sonic is hosted by the legendary funk musician Bootsy, and I can definitely say that his contributions make this feel more warm, more inviting, and also playful. This is a very fun album to listen to, and for that reason, it gets more and more lucrative the more times you spin it. There's definitely a lot of gimmick in the sense that it is very retro, and you've probably heard stuff like this before, but what actually shines through is both Bruno Mars and especially Anderson .Paak, who I feel is incredibly underrated for some of his projects that he's put out in the past, like Malibu. Yes, they gained critical attention, but they didn't necessarily perform all that well in the mainstream. But what I was getting at with the whole idea of the gimmick is that the lyrics can feel very silly, and I can understand why a track like Skate is hard to stomach, at least at first listen. I think the music is what keeps me hanging around, especially on that moment. It's one of my least favorites lyrically, but please check out the full album because I don't think that Skate is necessarily entirely representative. Leave the Door Open was the perfect choice for lead single because it really shows off what they can do in a sultry atmosphere where their chemistry gets to fly off the rails and just collide in the best way. The braggadocious cut Fly As Me is hella irresistible. I just love Anderson .Paak's flows so much. And then when they team up on the final chorus, everything just falls into place like a series of dominoes. The pair team up with Bootsy and Thundercat for After Last Night, which is one of the best bass performances on the entire album. It's just so lively and crisp in the mix, but would you expect anything less if Thundercat's appearing? A lot of the drum arrangements do feel very similar, and to that degree, I was feeling a little iffy at first, and some of the songs sounding similar to each other, but with repeated listens, I think that the individual characteristics of both Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak get to shine a little bit more. You hear things that they sneak into the mix that make you see, hey, that's why they work so well together, because they're constantly tinkering not just with their vocals and making them sound phenomenal with the harmonies, it's also the chemistry that they have musically for the instrumental arrangements. Smokin Out the Window is just, wow, bulletproof, and there's a lot of songs on this album that are about women, about a one-night one-night stand that maybe they don't want it to be a one-night stand, and then this one feels like the end of the relationship, where they're kind of scooping their heart off the floor and sweeping it into a dustpan, but they're also saying, there's a bit of a passive-aggressive attitude here that I want to explore further, but still make the song very fun, and that, my friends, is Smokin' Out the Window. But we haven't even gotten to my favorite song on the LP, and that is 777. The energy is unrivaled by anything else here. This song is so much fun. Go to Vegas, put it all on red, put it all on something. You are making your bets, and they're calling your bluff, because this song goes there. Doesn't it feel good to just let go of the burdens of life and feel good with the music that you're listening to? They definitely capitalize on that with 777, but also Blast Off, the closer that leans into psychedelic territory, the guitar solo, their vocals, they're tripping on psychedelics somewhere, and all I know is that I want in. Man, the debut album of the teaming up of Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak is a damn good time. It's an album that you can roll down the windows, cut loose, and dance to, and while I acknowledge that there is a major part of this record that feels borrowed and recycled from the past of the 70s, Motown, and funk, it's what they bring to the table with their charm, their attitude, and almost the theatrical performances, the characters that they play in these songs that makes it worth coming back to. I'm gonna give An Evening with Silk Sonic a light 4 out of 5. Thank you so much for checking out my review of this album. If you have any thoughts on it, then please let me know in the comments section down below. Also, hit that like button while you're down there because a like goes a long way, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you want to see me review Bruno Mars, then tap here, or tap here for an Anderson .Paak review. All of my socials can be found in the description down below, and I'll be back soon for more on ARTV.